As the year comes to a close, I feel like there's a certain tendency for a lot of us to look back and reflect on what we've accomplished or done since January. A lot of us might be thinking about if we did what we wanted to do this year, if we met our goals, or ended that bad habit, or took up that new hobby, or saved up enough money for that thing we wanted. And these are goals that we probably came up with at the start of the year because every new year feels exciting and invigorating. And it's kind of like that's the time where we feel the most hopeful and optimistic about ourselves and our futures. It's like hitting a reset button. Like, hey, the last year didn't even happen. Some of us can lift a proud hand into the air and say, hey, yeah, that's me. I had something I wanted to accomplish and I did it. And that's awesome. That's great. But some of us can't say the same. Maybe after setting a goal for yourself, you quit after a day, maybe a week, maybe a month. And some of us, well, maybe we're only just starting to think about throwing in the towel now. Sometimes you don't really try, and that's okay because you're okay with not accomplishing that goal because it was never really that serious in the first place. But maybe you didn't quit, and you're still working on it now, but for some reason, it's just not working out. Because sometimes we have goals and things we want to do that burn, and they sink themselves deep in the pit of your stomach, and you get fixated on them, and you feel like you just have to reach them. And I just want to say now, if you fall into that latter category, and you have a burning goal like that, and you work on it day in and day out, and you're putting in blood, sweat, and tears, and you haven't reached it yet, you are trying your best. You are trying your best. You're trying and it's not happening, and that's okay. Sometimes things just don't happen like we want them to. That's okay. You try your hardest and it feels like you have nothing to show for it. That's okay. The worst thing you can do is be even harder on yourself and start beating yourself up about it. It's okay to say, I'm still working on it. Sometimes things don't just happen. Everyone goes through it at some point or other. I'm gonna be honest, I'm making this video right now because I'm all out of funny juice at the moment, and I was just staring at a blank Word document for hours and nothing happened, and that's okay. So as someone who has tried to do a lot and failed at even more, I wanna say something. And I'm by no means some all-knowing sage. I haven't lived countless lifetimes on this planet, but I think as someone who has been in the pits of failure a few times here and there, I wanna think I learned a thing or two about failure. I wanna tell you the story about my driver's exam. This was about 3 years ago now. This is when I was trying really hard to get my driver's license. And the process of getting your license might vary a bit depending on where you're from, but where I got my license, you have to get a learner's permit first. So I got my learner's permit pretty much the second I could. My dad was really keen on me getting my license, so he got me a book to prepare for the theoretical exam. Because how it works here is you pass a written exam, then you can drive with the supervision of someone who has a full license, and then after a year of that, you can take a driving exam to get a license that has a whole bunch of restrictions on it, and only then you can take another exam to get your full license. I passed the written exam pretty well a few days after the birthday that made me eligible, but then a year passed, then another one, and another one, and another one. And at this point, I was barely driving with my learner's permit. I practically hadn't touched a car, literally in months. And I still hadn't taken the driving test. Maybe I was lazy, maybe I was scared, but either way, I ended up getting to my second year of university, not being able to drive. I was seeing my friends and peers around me getting their licenses left and right, and I started feeling pretty embarrassed. So that's when I started taking things seriously, and I started practicing driving regularly with my dad. Thank you, Dad. Daily, actually. Eventually, it got to be summer. I booked a few extra driving lessons to brush up, and I booked my exam. The day came, my mom took me to the place I had to give my test, and I failed. And I failed because I turned my wheel to the left while I was at a left turn, and my instructor called that a dangerous maneuver because if a car hit me from behind, I'd roll into oncoming traffic and get T-boned, basically. Besides that, he said I gave a pretty perfect drive. I was devastated. All in all, not the worst thing in the world that I could be upset about, but it mattered a lot to me at the time, and I failed. And booking another exam would have taken months. It was busy and hard to get a spot, so I took the other option and waited 2 weeks before going to a drop-in. And drop-ins were hard because you had to show up in the morning and you wouldn't be guaranteed a spot. They'd put your name on a list, and if someone who had booked an appointment didn't show up, they'd call you in the order you came. So I thought, okay, since it's the summer and I didn't have anything better to do, why not? And I woke up early, my mom went with me, thank you mom, and I signed up for a drop-in. I came at 8 a.m. and waited around till 12 until finally I was called up. I was super nervous. I had just dragged my poor mom along with me to a drop-in that wouldn't be guaranteed. Thank you, mom. I waited 4 hours while being nervous, got to the car, nervous, and the exam started, and man, wow, it was brutal. My instructor ended up having to use the parking brake to bring me to an emergency stop, or we would have gotten into a car accident, basically. So needless to say, I failed again. And I was even more devastated because I knew I could do better. And another 2 weeks passed and I was just anxious the whole time. Just the whole time I felt nothing but nervousness and anxiousness about my driving exam. But another 2 weeks rolls around and I go in to a drop-in session. Seriously, thank you, mom. I get there, I wait until 1 p.m. I get called up. During the exam, I didn't understand what my instructor told me at some point, and I didn't do what he said. During another point, we got into a construction site that was not supposed to be on the route, and he told me to do a 3-point turn, and I completely forgot how to do a 3-point turn. And we got back, and that was it. And he said I passed, and I got my license. I drove my mom to the grocery store. We got groceries, we got Malona popsicles, and I drove home. And suddenly, all that failure, all that nervousness, it seemed like it made sense, and it just vanished. It was like it didn't even happen. Because in that failure, I learned a lot. You don't really fully appreciate how much you learn from failure until you have actually failed at something that means a lot to you and you apply what you learn to your life. And the truth is, if I hadn't failed that first driver's exam, I can easily picture myself getting into some kind of car accident because I deserved to fail. I was overconfident. I thought I knew how to drive, but I should not have been turning my wheels left while waiting for a left turn. And now I know better, and I'm a better driver for it. Now, this isn't a video about learning from your mistakes. There is a lot to be said about learning from your mistakes, but that's not what this is about. This is about how you are going to make a lot of mistakes in pursuit of your goals. You are going to fail a lot, and that's okay. Listen, you're in good company, okay? Don't trust anyone who says they don't fail. If someone says they don't fail, they eat their pizza with a spoon. It's okay to fail. Life goes on. Life finds a way to work itself out and put you on a path that you'll ultimately accept. And I don't want to lie to you and say that you're always going to accomplish your goals, that you will always get what you want, because I don't know if that's true. But what I do know is true is that just by trying, just by making an honest effort, you are doing exactly the best thing you can do for yourself. You are doing your best, and that's good enough. Just keep going. You are doing your best. At least to me at this point, life just seems like a collection of happy mistakes and lucky failures, because ultimately, those mistakes and those failures are what bring us to where we need to be. I can't tell you how much good has come out of my life because of something I have failed at before. Places I've been, people I've met, things I've learned. The most growing I've ever done as a person, it always comes from failing at something first. It is okay to fail. You are doing your best. Just keep going and try again and again and again. Rinse and repeat, and eventually you'll be happy some way, somehow, and hey, with a little luck, you might get what you wanted, and wouldn't that feel so great? Because someone at some point once said, failure is just the spice that gives success its flavor. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.